the closer you become to becoming an adult, interest is going to be something that can either be your friend or it can be your worst enemy. If you come into a lot of money, interest can be wonderful for you because your money makes money. However, if you're in debt and you're having to borrow money, interest can just push you farther into debt. Let's start by defining what interest is. It is the amount of money charged for borrowing or using money. So if you are the borrower, you are slave to the lender, as the proverb says. If you're the borrower, it is the fee that you're paying to the bank. CFSB does not loan you money because they love you. CFSB loans you money so that they can make money. You need to borrow money for a car? Well, they will gladly lend you that money, but you have to pay a fee in return for that. Or if you've ever seen the Cash Express sign that says borrow $200, pay back $203, they will charge you $3 to borrow $200. Or if somebody is using your money, Great Aunt Sally leaves you $500,000 in CFSB, then they want your $500,000, and they say, hey, if you'll let us hang on to your $500,000 for 10 years, we will pay you based on an interest rate, and you can make money off your money. It comes from this formula, and you need to have this formula ingrained in your memory. Interest equals principal times the rate times the time. Let me check something. Okay, sorry, I thought I wasn't filming. The interest, this is simple interest. It is the money paid only on the principal. This is what the dollar amount that you're making. The principal, this is the dollar amount that is borrowed or invested. This is the $10,000 that you're borrowing to buy that car, or the $500,000 that Great Aunt Sally, or whoever it was I said, left you, and you're investing that money. R is the interest rate. It is the percent charged or earned as a decimal. So you might see a car commercial and they say that it's 2.4% interest. That would go right here. And you can remember from previous lessons that anytime you're using a percent in an equation, you write it as a decimal in there. And T is the time. This is the amount of years that the money is invested or borrowed. So if it was 4.5 years, 4 years, 6 months, you would put 4.5 there. If it was 6 months, you would put 0.5 there. If it was 10 years, you would put a 10 there. As I said, this formula needs to be memorized. You need to know that formula frontwards and backwards. So let's start by finding interest and the total payment. So we have this fella, Tristan. He borrows $14,500 for a car. His loan was for 5 years at 7%. How much interest will he have to pay? And then what is the total amount that he will repay? We're using that formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. So we plug it in. We don't know the interest, so that variable remains there. $14,500 is the principal. That's the amount that he borrowed. Times 0.07, that's 7% as a decimal, times the time, which is 5 years. You multiply those three together, you get $5,075. That is the fee that you are paying to borrow the money for that car. So you have to repay the principal plus the interest. So you add those two together, plus the amount he borrowed plus the interest. He's going to pay back $19,575. Maybe buying that new vehicle wasn't as glamorous as you once thought because you're having to pay back a lot of money in interest to have that vehicle. Next, let's look at determining the amount of investment time. Isaiah invested $3,500 in a mutual fund, which is a stock market type term, at 6% APR. APR stands for annual percentage rate. You'll see that acronym a lot in commercials or any type of advertising for lending. He earned $945 in interest. For how long was his money invested? So in this case, we know the interest. What we don't know is the time. We don't know how long he invested that for. So here's the how-to for that. You sub in what you know. I substitute in the parts that I know. I know $3,500 was the principal. I know 6% is the rate. I know $945 is the amount of interest. And then you solve for what you don't know. So So we plug all those things in. 945 was the interest. 3,500 was the principal. The rate as a decimal is 0.06, and we put t because we don't know the time. We leave that as a variable. So we subbed in what we know. Now we're going to solve for what we don't know, the amount of time. 945 stays on the left. 3,500 times 0.06 is 210. Then I'm going to undo what's happening to the variable by dividing both sides by 210. And I get t equals 4.5 years. So you can see $3,500 for 4.5 years, you earned almost $1,000 more. So just think about the example I used in the introduction of if you had $500,000. When we are in class, we're going to explore how the rich get richer because they have the money to invest. Now, computing total savings. Nadia, her aunt, deposited $3,000 in a savings account for her college fund. How much will she have after 6 years, 6 months at 3.5%? So we're wanting the total savings, which is going to be the interest and the principal. So there's that formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. We sub in what we know, solve for what we don't know. We don't know the interest, but we do know the principal is $3,000. The rate, 3.5% is a decimal, is 0.035. And the time, 6 years, 6 months, is not 6.6 because 6 months is half of a year. So if that were 2 months, you would divide 2 by 12 to get that decimal. So it's 6.5 years. Multiply those three things together, you get $682.50. Now I have to combine these to get my total savings like we did with Tristan's car example. You took the principal plus the interest. Her aunt put in $3,000. She earned $682.50 in interest. So at the end of that time, she will have $3,682.50. Now let's practice this. You attempt those and then pause and then come back to see what I did. Okay, so on part A, finding the interest and the total amount, plug it into your formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. Multiply those three together, you get $33.75. That gets the interest. To find the total amount, you add the principal to it. So I added $225, and you get $258.75. Same process on part B. Multiply the three together, but the catch is for 9 months, that is 0.75 years because you divide 9 by 12, because there's 12 months in a year, you get 0.75. Multiply those three together, you get $46.5 plus the principal of $775, you get $821.50. For part C, you're told the principal, you're told the interest, you're told the rate, but you're not told the time. So we sub in what we know, we solve for what we don't know. 270 equals 1500 times 0.12 times t. Multiply 1500 and 0.2, you get 180. Then divide both sides by 180, and you get 1.5 years.